All right, so let's get into the API. Let's get into the coding part. This one's a lot better. There's like, this is the only text on the slide for this one. So what is an API, right? So it's an application programmable interface. We're going to be connecting, we're going to be taking our inputs, sending them off to OpenAI. They're going to be letting their model work on it, and then we're going to get our response back, right? That's what this whole thing is. So here's our code. We set up our code. We're going to make the API call. We're going to have our inputs, and we're going to have our requests, right? So like, we're requesting the assistant ID this time. Or we're to create our assistant. We're making our inputs are, if we're using DALL-E, like DALL-E 3, which you all have access to as well if you want to do image creation. Our inputs are prompt for, like what size we want the image to be and the actual part of the image. That goes to the OpenAI platform. They retrieve our response, and then they calculate the costs for whatever we're using. And then it returns to our code where we have our response and then return variables. So when we get back, whether it's the picture from DALL-E or we get our actual text response, for the technical track people, there's a lot more in that return variable that comes back that says like, hey, we use this amount of tokens. We use, there's a lot more return variables that will come back that were specifically used with the model that are good to take note of for your code. So I've used DALL-E to make a very highly accurate image of this process, so it's easier to understand. So here we are, we're coding, and then it calls the API mod, or calling an API. We have a request, and then our response goes to the platform, then this guy. Let's just move past it. This is what it actually looks like in the code. So we're going to, and this is in Python as well. You can use whatever coding language you want, but this is in Python. So we're going to import our OpenAI library, right? This is the most important part, setting up our API key. So this right here is the Google Colab notebook. I'll show it in a second. It is so crucial that you do not let this API key get into anyone else's hands other than the people in your team. I am going to be monitoring the usage of all the keys, seeing like who's using it, and if anyone goes off the rails, if we get a warning, anything like that, your key gets cut. And then we're gonna have a little quick conversation about what's going on. If there's an accident, something happens, totally fine, but really make sure that your API key is staying secret with the applications that you're making. Right? So we're going to load our API key in here. We're calling our client. So now we have our client variable. This is the actual API pull right here. We have our inputs. We're asking, this is the model. Here's what the messages look like. So here we have our system message. There's our user message, assistant, and user. Obviously, this is going to look different when you're actually, like, these strings of text are going to be coded differently, right? That's up to you to figure out. And then we print our response. So if you actually see response, there's a lot going on here. This is a lot of methods just to get to the text. There's a lot that actually comes back for a response, right? So you want to print in a readable format. All right, so if we want to open up, if everyone wants to follow along, I made a quick Google Colab notebook that's just going to show us a lot of the different APIs. I'll open it in a second, but just so you know, because it's actually not going to work, sadly, unless you have an API key you want to use. How this works in Google Colab is on the left side of the screen, you're going to see a little key. You click on that key, and that's where you're going to have your secrets. This is the same way it's going to work on the Hugging Face app when you create the secrets there, and we'll get into it. You're going to want to add a new secret, and then that's where you put in your API key, right? This similar process is going to happen again, over and over again. Just this is how you hide your key. You create what's called a secret, and then you load the secret, and then you make sure when you call it again in the code, this is the name that it comes up with, and then the variable stays in. Right? All right, so I'm actually going to close this out. And we're going to go to the website. So, really quick, we're going to install the library. So Google Colab does not come with the OpenAI library at the back end like it does for Pandas and NumPy. They all come like pre-installed on most Google Colab notebooks. So we're going to do this first. Then we're going to import our secret key. You're not going to see it here. You have to sign in. But then, yeah. So then it's the, here we go. Looks very familiar, right? And there's our answer. So here's our API poll. And that's the answer we get in response. So that legal audit checklist, if you wanted to download it, so right here we do a wget for it. So right here we're just downloading that checklist. This is also an alternative way to import the file if you had to save it on your desktop or something like that. And so this is now the code for creating the assistant, right? So we've loaded our knowledge base, and now we go, okay, let's make our assistant. So first, we have to make sure that the file, so what happens, and it's great. So the way that OpenAI has it set up is that any text file, so documents, so like what can you actually upload? So this is a PDF. It's like they actually have like on their website like all the different exact files that you can upload, but it's like every text file you can possibly imagine, like Python files, documents from like Microsoft Word, PDFs, just normal text documents. Those all get read, but when you read them in, this RB here, right? So here's our file open. RB is read binary. So it's actually not just taking the text, it's reading in like the PDF or whatever the text document in as binary. That's how the API wants all text and visual information in binary. Because then, like how does it parse out, like all the different text, like all the different pictures on a PDF, like how does it do all that stuff? It's because it's reading it in as binary. So we're uploading our file for our assistant, and then now, just like we did a call for the other API, here's our call for our assistant API. So, like you saw that I had the bot set up, but here's Legal Leo is the name, the instructions, your assistant named Legal Leo who's designed a guide, blah, 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 blah. Our model, and here is the tools. So, retrieval is only for that other bot, but for those using the API, you can use retrieval, you can use code interpreter, you can use DALL-E, and you can build your own tools. We won't get into that because that's like it's a whole other hour of me spewing. But like this right here is another crucial part for the technical track to get ahead and to figure out how you can use this API as like that's something that's completely unique. You can add your own tools. So for instance, it's bad at math before. You can set up a tool that's good at math. It actually knows equations. And there's a lot of examples for that online as well. All right, so we make our call for our API. Here's our file ID. And then the whole point of this is to get that assistant ID. So here's mine. That's Legal Leo, right? We created our assistant ID. Now, we actually want to have the chat. So here's how you do it. We create a thread. Thread is just a conversation, right? We have our user inputs. This would be, how it comes in. So however you're going to record user input. I'll show you later how to do it with the Gradio interface. But if you wanted to set up an HTML5, like how to do this, whatever it is. So our user input. So it's hello. What is your name and purpose? And this is where we first do our first call. We add the user's message to the thread. We run the assistant. And then all this does, this little loop here, is saying while it's running, I want you to tell me, we'll see right here in our output right now, that it is running, that our run status is in progress. Those little 3 loading dots. So your customer's not sitting there sitting there for the bot, and it's just like, is this thing on? Like, am I getting a response? So that's what that is. And then when it completes, it stops, and then it prints the response. So hello, I'm Legal Leo. I'm an assistant. Oh, look, it's my system message, right? And then last is an API call for DALL-E. So I asked for a happy tricolor corgi. and it gives, well, failed. No, I can't run it again, but trust me, whatever you want to make for DALL-E, there it is. Same thing. Our inputs are a little bit different. We're actually talking about the size of an image, the prompt of an image, like same model we're using, quality, standard, high definition, the number of pictures we want to get back. Once again, all inputs that we're using and putting into, you get a call back from the model. All right, any questions on this so far? Okay, cool. We're going to move back to the PowerPoint. Is there anyone totally lost on the technical track that doesn't know about Python or anything like that is lost on this? It's okay, don't worry about it. Anyone using not Python? Anyone has like, oh, I'm going to build this in HTML or anything else like that? Any other tools? So mostly Python users, I'm assuming, hoping. All right. Oh, switch this. All right. So you probably saw. So Gradio. Gradio is the name of a Python library that helps you actually build a user interface, right? So you're not going to have your customer go to a Google Colab notebook to do all this and have this conversation, right? So Gradio is just a really, really simple way to make a user interface. So just to give you a super simple Gradio app, it's just my input is my name, and then my output is just saying hello to me, right? We saw a little bit. We saw it with like the bot I made, the assistant creator, same thing. So Hugging Face is the name of the website that we saw just before that hosts Gradio apps very, very well, and you can create a space and have other people interact with it. So this is where we highly recommend, if you don't know how to start with this, this is a great place to start. So what does Hugging Face look like? So it's great. And if you want to go there now, because I'm going to be going over creating a space. So if you want to open it up and go to the website, I'll show you how to create a space and the things that you need to account for when building your bot. And once again, all of this will be, I'll share all these slides with everybody, so you will have them. But yeah, so Hugging Face, it's also great for data sets. So if you're like, oh, I wish I had a wealth of information to feed one of my bots, there are so many data sets that are on this website that you can definitely use for this project. So, create a new space. When you've signed in, you've made an account, you'll have at the very top, no matter what page you're on, these models, data sets, spaces, docs, solutions, pricing. You're going to click on spaces. When you're on this spaces page, when you're on here, you'll see a bunch of different spaces that are that other people have made. There's a lot of them out there. Highly recommend looking at some of them, getting an understanding of what's going on out there in the space. I see a lot of people trying to probably making accounts, so I'll give it a second. So one of the spaces that I saw recently that I really liked was it put two chatbots against each other, where both of them had within their system message, they had personally identifiable information. So someone's full name and address, let's just say, in their system message. Your job was to, obviously fake, but your job was to probe the bots until you got that information from them. And the first bot to loses, and then the other one moves ahead in the bracket. And it was just comparing two bots, and they have a whole leaderboard and everything. That bot, if you find it, is great because they also show what this is, the prompts are, or the actual back-end system messages, and that would be a great start, to show you, hey, this is what a good system message looks like, to make sure that they're not getting information from you. All right, I've heard a lot less tapping, so I'm going to move forward. So yeah, so once you're on this spaces page, you're going to go to create a new space. If at any point the bot shuts down, just raise your hand. I'll restart it. I don't want to go to my computer right now. So you're going to create a new space. Really easy. Choose a name. Be creative. You can't change that, or you can change this later on, but you have to delete it and then restart it. So make a test one for right now, kind of a thing. Choose the MIT license. It's always a safe pick for protection. And then you're going to choose the Gradio SDK. This will change, obviously, if you want to use other things like HTML5 like they have there. But for the Gradio SDK, this is what we want to use. SDK is Source Developer Kit, if anyone didn't know that. It's just the back end kind of thing, how it's going to build when it builds the hardware. So pick the hardware you want to run on. So the first level is free. It's giving you a 2-core CPU and 16 gigabytes completely for free. That's pretty crazy, honestly. Like, I'm so surprised this is the offering because, you know, most of our laptops are like that still, like old laptops. So, and it's perfect for just, you know, making an API call, putting some text in and out. So yeah, really not that bad. And then we're going to choose private space. So when you do private, only you can see it. If you do public and then you're working on your space and all of a sudden you put your API key there, anyone can see it. So please, please put it private. You can always switch it back. It's just you go to the settings page, you can just click one button, immediately makes it private. So just definitely start out when you're making it at private. Any questions on this so far? Cool. Okay. So moving forward. So creating the bot. 2 files that you need. There's a whole, like, this gets so much hairier. There's a lot more things that can go into this, but bare minimum, you need 2 files. That is the app file. So that's going to be your Python file that has your app built in it. And then your requirements.txt. That's going to hold all the information of what Python libraries you want installed. So no matter what, everyone's is going to look like this. It's going to have OpenAI, and it's going to have Gradio in there. If you want to see what they look like, go find other spaces, find the spaces I made, see how it's written in the requirements. And then if you want to copy someone else's, all you have to do is go to the file, and then when you click on the file, there's this little raw thing for the raw file. If you click on it, you would have to like copy and paste it, but all you have to do is just do save link as. You right click on it, and then it will actually just let you save that file natively. Okay? All right, going to move forward. So, setting up secrets. When you have your app, right, we've uploaded, or even before you upload your app file, before you want to set up your requirements, if you want to set up these variables, these hidden variables, you're going to want to go to settings, and on the settings page, you scroll down. There's going to be a secrets category. All you have to do is just click new secret. So, if you looked at the bot, so obviously I don't want to have my username and password. Like normally in code, it's like you're in the back end, you don't have to like share it with anybody, kind of a thing, so no one would know like the password information or any of these things. But since we have to hide it, so you can't just like go click on my file and be like, oh look, that's what the username and password is, and then anyone can log in onto like my bot. So I hide the username and password, and I obviously also hide the API token. And whatever you save this as, this is the name that you're going to call in the code later on. And yeah, remember, do not share your API key. We're tracking all the keys. I can see your usage. I can see what models you're using, everything. So, like how much money that was charged per team. And, you know, we want everyone to experiment with it. I highly recommend maybe working from the start on a lower model first, like work on ChatGPT 3.5, do a couple things, but it's not anything that should be crazy. All right. So we've officially added everything. Our app is loading. We want to see if it's running properly, or we want to we're first loading it. So when you're on the app tab on your space, you're going to see this thing at the top saying it'll say building if it's building the space. It'll say like broken or something if it'll be in red up here if it doesn't work, if it's not working. But then to the right of it, we have open logs. And then when you open the logs, you get this like window will pop up, and then you have build, and container to switch between. So build, if you have a problem here, it's something happened when it was loading and was actually starting to build the bot. So you had conflicting requirements. Your version of Python is conflicting with the OpenAI version that you want to try and force load. It's whenever like this machine is like, okay, let's build whatever the space is. That's where you're going to look if you're having failures when it's building. Container is so you've successfully ran the app. It's now running. It says green and it's running at the top. But whenever you click your submit button for if you're like, all right, submit, like I'm hitting my first prompt message, like here it goes, and then nothing comes up, and then it still says running, you want to go to container. That's like the terminal, that's like the error log of the actual running Python script. So you can also set up your like print out text messages, things like that. Like, hey, we're on this step, things like that to help you. Because what you want to do is you really want to make sure that you have a starting working bot in another interface, and you're not making changes within the Hugging Face, because it's literally like editing a like text document in text editor. Everyone out there who's coding, you want to edit in text editor, not without your coding copilot or whatever. Like, don't do it. So always make sure before coming here that in Google Colab, wherever you're working, you can set up your entire Gradio space, all that stuff there, and then bring it over and then start loading it here and then do some troubleshooting. But you want to do most of your coding, in Visual Studio Code, whatever you want to use, PyCharm. Any questions so far on this? I know this is like in the weed stuff. Everyone's going to be building their bot over the weekend, and then, then it will come up, but that's totally fine. All right, and then we have our launched app. So for this one I made, this was actually the first bot I ever made. It was back before, like, I wanted my friends and I wanted other people to be able to use ChatGPT without having to pay for it. So I created a Gradio app that was literally just ChatGPT, where it's not impressive anymore, but it's just literally just here's your prompt, you can choose the tokens and the temperature, and you got your output. And just name it Mr. Bot. You can also add examples, which is also great. So examples are crucial if you want to start guiding your users in a certain direction, or like, hey, this is what you should use this for. I'll give you a hint. There's companies that I've been talking to recently through work that this is what they want to figure out exactly, help guide users. So that's very crucial. All right, and then we've already went through this, but if you we'll go through it again. I'm actually going to pull it up on my computer. I'll switch over. But just showing you the back end of my bot. But are there any other questions? Any questions so far? Okay, cool. We're done. So if you want to, I'm pretty sure lunch got set up, but we're finished here. If you have any more questions, like I said, there's the Slack app. I'm going to be hanging out here for a little bit. But thank you so much for listening to me spew for about an hour, over an hour.